So we would like to start this meeting in a little bit different way because we're here and have this privilege. We'd like to invite Senior Associate Dean Espinoza to share some opening remarks and a report about Imperial Valley.
Thank you, Nella. Hello, everyone. Welcome to San Diego State University Imperial Valley. On behalf of Dean Nunez Michiri, but also on behalf of the Imperial Valley community, I welcome all of you to Imperial County, to our beautiful Calexico campus. And I want to thank the Senate for making the annual visit, the annual meeting in San Diego State University Imperial Valley a reality. Something that I always mention is that the power of presence is very important. The power of your presence and the signal that you send to our faculty, our staff, our students, and the members of our community is very strong. So thank you for being here. I would like to take just a few minutes to tell you what we are doing and how we are growing as an Imperial Valley community. I want to start by just showing you the place where we are. This is Imperial County, and when we talk about SDSU Imperial Valley, we talk about two campuses. Right now, we're based in Calexico, in the southern tip of Imperial County. When it's not very hot outside, we can literally walk 10 minutes and have lunch in Mexico. That's how close we are to the border. And our northern campus is being developed in Broward, which is 23 miles north from here. It is important to mention this because we need to start thinking about how we're going to be connecting the two campuses and how we're going to be serving our students. So there are 23 miles that separate the two campuses, and there are 115 miles that separate us from San Diego, but I wouldn't like to use the word separate us anymore. I would like to use 115 miles that put us together as one SDSU. Our students, we also need to be mindful about the students that we serve. So these are the students in SDSU Imperial Valley. I don't want to tell you a lot about statistics, about numbers. I just want to point your attention to the fact that around 70% of our students are female. About 90% of our students are Hispanic Latinos. And that 71% of our students are Pell eligible. When I go to the community and they ask me what is Pell eligible, I use a definition from the U.S. Department of Education that states that Pell grants are intended to fund undergrad students who display exceptional financial need. These are the students that we serve in Imperial Valley. We have 1,100 students, and we have 25 tenure track wonderful faculty, 98 lecturers, and 54 members of our staff. We are a campus, but we're also a college. We have been asked to grow, and that's what we're doing. This campus comes back from the pandemic with a lot of dynamism. The numbers that I'm showing you here are just telling you recent numbers about new students coming to our campus, and that brings us a lot of opportunities. Traditionally, this campus has served transfer students, but now the demographics are starting to change because as we are present in the community, going back to the power of presence, then a growing number of high school students are interested in SDSU Imperial Valley. The numbers that you see on the screen might not seem too big when you compare this with the San Diego campus. However, I can tell you that as of right now, our fall 2024 freshman admissions at first year, it's about 110 without considering the applicants to the nursing program. This for us is a lot of growth, and the transfers are also growing. So this campus is serving a lot of students with the characteristics that I showed you in the previous slide. And we are doing this with majors that we offer, that we could expand. Our three largest majors are criminal justice, liberal studies, and psychology. We started offering nursing as a first-year program, as the Bachelor's in Science of Nursing a couple of years ago. It was open to freshmen and to transfers. And this year in commencement, we're gonna have the first graduating class from that first college. We also have majors open to transfer students. And we have graduate and credential programs. We're expanding our academic offerings. We have a new public health degree with an emphasis in environmental science. And when we start talking about the Bradley campus, we start thinking about chemistry and electrical engineering. We are doing a lot of things to grow and also to build institutional infrastructure that is needed to serve our students. One example is a Title V $3 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education. But it is important to mention that this grant was an institutional grant, but then the decision of the committee, which include faculty from Imperial Valley and from the Mesa campus, was that the full proceeds of the grant, if it was awarded, would come to Imperial Valley campus. Right now, we're managing this grant, and with this, we're building institutional capacity in terms of the classes that we offer, in terms of the services that we offer to our students, so that we can retain them and make sure that they are successful. What we are doing is providing educational opportunities for the professional development and to be part of the workforce development that this region needs. Another major development, which is going to be a breakthrough for this county, is the STEM building that is being built at the Bradley campus. When I tell you about our student population, think about the students who are going to be engineers. Think about the students who are going to be chemists. Think about the opportunities that a lot of first-generation students, which is also an important part of our campus, are going to have. We have a lot of students who are the first in their families to attend college and to have an opportunity. What we are doing is making sure that the students that you see here, which are the students that I mentioned before, have an opportunity to grow and have an opportunity to be successful. This is SDSU Imperial Valley, and I wanted to bring this to your attention for the same reason that I told you before. We're building. We're moving forward, and we're also thinking about building dorms right next to our campus. By fall of 2026, we'll be able to host students from the Imperial Valley Community College and SDSU Imperial Valley. Why does that matter? For the same reason that I mentioned before. 23 miles might not seem like a lot, but when students, and we have a lot of them, only have one car per household, then 23 miles, it's a very long distance. When we have students who need to go to a class at the Mesa campus, drive 2 hours there and 2 hours back, that poses challenges for some of them. How we build the physical institutional infrastructure to do that, that's something that we need to do as an SDSU community. So I'm hoping that with this brief message, I can tell you that 115 miles, it's something that should bring us together. And hopefully it's gonna bring us together from this point forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move to our time certain with VP Wong Nickerson. The PBAC committee report. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I have Crystal Little. She is our AVP for Financial Operations, joining me to give this budget presentation. So can we go to the next? So this is what we're going to cover today, our agenda item. And let's move to the first one, enrollment update. I know that interim vice provost will give a more detailed update in her report on enrollment. So I'm not going to go into great detail. I will only comment briefly on its impact on our budget planning for this coming year. But very big picture, our current year, 23-24 year, the SDSU has exceeded the target. So for example, in the spring, we are at 103% of our target. And next year, fiscal year 24-25 is also looking really good. Our application is close to 117,000. So that's another record year, and 90,000 for first year applications. And SDSU is actually one of the 4 CSU campuses that have grown enrollments in the last several years. So that's SDSU, SLO, Long Beach, and Fullerton. The rest of the CSU campuses either stayed flat or saw a decline in the enrollments. So in the past, campuses that missed the enrollment target continue to receive the state funding as if they have met the targets. So for example, we have one campus that was down by almost 40%, but received the same funding in 23-24 as before. However, this is going to change in fiscal year 24-25. So 8 campuses that have experienced under enrollment for more than 10% will have their enrollment targets decreased by 3%, and the related funding will be reallocated to growing campuses. And since SDSU is one of the growing campuses, we can expect to receive some of the reallocated enrollment funding. And this will allow us to grow 500 more resident FTEs. In addition, although payment of the 24-25 next year's compact will be delayed to fiscal year 2025, according to the governor's January budget, CSU is expected to achieve all the compact-related goals, including enrollment growth in 24-25. So CSU is also expected to receive one-time funding in 24-25, and then the related base funding in 25-26 to grow another 575 FTEs in the coming year, fiscal year 2024 and 25. So in summary, SDSU is expected to grow 1,075 resident FTEs, and the revenue from the enrollment growth is actually part of our strategy to balance the budget. So let's go to the next slide. Another update on bargaining. So all the unions have now ratified and approved the agreements in place. And some of the units, such as CSU EU, will see their retroactive pay in a separate check as early as this week. And the base increase, the 5%, will be reflected in their April 1 paycheck. MPP and confidential staff are also eligible for increases through a merit pool, 5% merit pool, contingent on an employee receiving a satisfactory performance evaluation on file. The 5% and the process and methodologies are determined by the CSU HR office. And the Board of Trustees actually just approved the agreements for CFA, APC, and Teamsters yesterday. Once SDSU receives the technical letter from the Chancellor's Office HR, we will start processing the increases. And so that these units will be able to see their retroactive pay in a separate check in May. And the base increase will be reflected in their June 1st paycheck. So that's all about the bargaining update. Let's go to the next slide.
So, yeah, thanks, Agnes. So I'll speak to the governor's preliminary budget that was released on January 10th, consistent with the normal timeline. So again, it's a preliminary budget, so it is subject to change. It just provides us that initial snapshot of where we think the governor will allocate funding for 24-25. In that proposed preliminary budget, the state was projecting a $38 billion deficit based largely on tax revenues. It's possible as we approach the May revise, we may see a worsened or potentially improved budget. But we're identifying that the longer term projection for the state of California has mixed opinions. And more recently, on February 20th, the Legislative Analyst Office provided its outlook for the budget for 24-25. And it's actually worsened, and we'll see how that plays out through the end of the cycle. But that $38 billion deficit has since increased to $73 billion, and that's largely based on, as they've seen the tax revenues, particularly around capital gains, and the market condition has resulted in that increase more than double of what they were projecting back during the January preliminary budget. So for the CSU, the governor's budget does propose solutions to balance to address that deficit that was in the January budget. And part of that plan is to defer the CSU's compact funding for 24-25. What that means is that the CSU would receive its existing funding level, and that 5% compact for 24-25 would be delayed, and we wouldn't receive those funds until 25-26, and that's about $240 million for the CSU. So the funding for 25-26 would include the compact funding for 24-25, as well as the compact funding for 25-26, and then retroactively reimburse us for the 24-25 one time, with the expectation that the CSU would need to kind of advance that funding for 24-25 with that repayment in 25-26. And as Agnes mentioned, the CSU would be expected to continue to advance our compact related goals, and that includes the enrollment growth Agnes mentioned, but also Graduation Initiative 2025, as well as some of the compliance around our NAGPRA and Title IX needs for 24-25. As it relates to one-time funding, typically we submit a significant request, and it was $2 billion in our proposal to the governor to support our deferred maintenance need as a system. But the governor came back and is actually not providing any one-time funding in that January preliminary budget. And again, the CSU system relies heavily on those one-time funds to support deferred maintenance, so that has a significant impact on the system. So as we mentioned, the system-wide bargaining negotiations have provided some clarity on where we're at from an expenditure plan around those needs. The compensation cost retro to July of 23 does result in some additional expenditure increases, as well as we have unfunded mandatory costs such as our utilities, health insurance, those additional compliance requirements associated with the compact, and the general inflationary factors we continue to see as an erosion factor to our budget. And all those costs will exceed those new revenues that we've identified in our budget, and will result in a budget deficit for the CSU system. So those anticipated new revenues we would be looking to would be that state allocation of the 5% compact, which, as we mentioned, has been deferred with the expectation of repayment. The Board of Trustees had also previously approved in the fall a 6% tuition increase that will take effect in fall of 24-25. And then, as we mentioned, that enrollment growth that's funded both through the compact, but also that reallocation that Agnes spoke to. So again, as a result of those anticipated budget deficits into 24-25, based on the governor's January budget and that additional information we're getting along the way about some of our cost increases, campuses are being asked to bear some of that unfunded cost. So campuses are looking to identify what solutions are available. And given the different situations across the different campuses within the CSU, we expect there'll be some different strategies that campuses will employ. SDSU is in a much better position than other campuses, given the enrollment challenges that many of our northern campuses are facing. As Agnes mentioned, SDSU has some significant numbers in increasing our applications. And with our enrollment growth, we're definitely in a much better position being able to utilize that enrollment growth funding to help offset some of that unfunded cost. Now I'll hand it back to Agnes to talk more specifically about SDSU's budget.
Yeah, so what does this mean to SDSU budget in the next few years? As Crystal mentioned, SDSU and all campuses is expected to bear some of the recurring recurring costs related to the underfunded compensation increases. And the total over 3 years is 25 million. This is base dollars, meaning recurring dollars. And also there's an additional 5 million coming from outside of the 5% increase. But this 5 million over 3 years related to the SSI and also the higher minimum lecturers' salaries increase. And next slide, please. So due to this shortfall of available funding, meaning the compensation increase is underfunded by the state, so because of that, we will all be required to develop strategies, including making difficult resource decisions to balance the budget. But I do want to share with you what are some of the priorities that we will continue to support as the university. We'll continue to support our academic mission and student success. So, for example, academic affairs will continue to receive base and one-time allocation to support the enrollment growth and instruction. And then some of the PBAC one-time requests that we have seen in the past, including commitment to fund FERP, faculty startup packages, these are just some examples that will continue to be supported. All divisions will be asked to develop a multi-year plan to address the budget shortfall, to maximize other non-general funding sources. So for example, philanthropy, external grants, global campus revenue, maybe non-resident enrollment, P3 project, and also minimize cost and evaluate existing programs and activities. One thing I want to share that CSU actually as a system is looking at some what they call shared service model, meaning that looking at one example that I can give you, like does each campus need to have a payroll office to process payroll? Can we have a either centralized payroll office or a regional payroll office to address transactions like that? So this is just one of the examples that CSU is exploring. These plans will be multi-year plan, so it will give us more time to allow for more strategic changes and also minimize the impact on our student success and also current faculty and staff. And additionally, SDSU will continue to work with the system to advocate at the state level for more funding to CSU. And for example, our president was in Sacramento last week just for that purpose to advocate for SDSU and CSU. So I also want to emphasize that all the plans that you've just heard, these are all preliminary and subject to change based on the governor's May revised budget and also June final budget. So there's still a lot of moving pieces, and we'll have to be agile and be ready for that, whatever the May revise and the June final budget comes out, what it looks like. So that concludes my presentation, and now I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, and we have about 10 minutes for questions. Senator Shomay, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I think I have one question, but it's actually 3 questions. So but it's all connected. So okay. I was told by Chancellor's Office staff that whenever faculty get a raise, administrators automatically get a raise. So my question is, what percent is that for administrators, that automatic raise? And finally, where does that money come from? I think that's what my question is.
Yeah, so at CSU, all the administrators' raises in the past and as in current year too are basically linked to CSU EU's contracts. So in the past, when
EU,
CSU,
what does that mean? EU contracts?
Oh, CSU EU. That's the one of our employee, the staff union.
Okay.
Yeah, the staff union.
Okay.
And so that staff union, the CSU EU, have negotiated a 5% increase for this current year. Mm-hmm. So the CSU policy is, well, actually for for the MPP for this year, they use the same percentage for MPPs. I would not say automatically because that can change, every year, right? But it has been
It is kind of
linked to
automatic
each
though.
other, right?
Yeah.
And also, the MPPs and the confidential staff, they don't automatically receive 5% automatically, unlike, the other represented units, right? Once the percentage is negotiated, everybody get the same percentage. For MPPs, they actually first have to have a satisfactory performance evaluation on files. If an employee doesn't have that, they are not eligible for that 5%. And also there's a little bit of flexibility, not a lot. It's a pooled system, meaning that, let's say, this division have a 5% pool for all the MPP. So they take all the MPP salary, takes 5%, this is your pool. There's a little bit flexibility because it's supposed to be a merit increase.
Mhm.
So if you have a superstar, that person may get 6%. But then another person need to get 4% because you only have 5% in the pool.
So
So
where does
that's
that money
not
come
flex-
from? Is that coming from the same pool or is it something extra that you get or?
So it's the same pool as the faculty and staff. It's just one big salary pool.
Thank you.
And what we're trying to say is in this year and the next 2 years, unfortunately, the increases are bigger than the funding available because the new funding that we get is either from the compact or the tuition increase, right? So, and that some of the two just not enough to cover all the cost.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
Thank you, Senator Sherman. You're recognized.
Thank you. 2 questions. So just to make sure I'm understanding, so like the example just now of the 5% raise for the staff union. So let's say like a staff member is making 50, 60 grand, they get a 5% raise. But then like an MPP making 300 or 400 grand is also getting a 5% raise? Is that accurate?
That's how I'm
Yes, the
understanding it.
percentage, yeah, but it's
Wow.
not automatic, as I mentioned before. Yeah.
Okay, and then my
Looks like you're frozen, Senator Sherman. Yep. Right, maybe she'll come back. Looks like she's gonna have to go out and come back. All right, Vice Chair Murdoch, you're recognized.
Hi, I have a question in relation to some of the data that we've seen presented by PBAC before. If my memory serves, we've seen a pie chart that was looking at the sort of percentages as they're broken up in the base funding. And I know that the majority of base funding is taken up by compensation. So I'm wondering if we can have another chart that shows us that huge percentage, which is compensation, but disaggregated for what it's I just want to see more nuance to if that's such a big part of our budget, how that's being divvied up.
Do you want to see that pie chart broken up by division or by the different unions like faculty versus staff? How would you like to see it? I mean, we can definitely, break it up.
Yeah, I think it would just be useful to see, especially in terms of like faculty compensation as in relation to administrative compensation. I just think it would be helpful for us to see those things.
Yeah, we're happy to, put something like that
Thank
together.
you very much.
Thank you. Senator Pappen, you're recognized.
Yes, you mentioned in your slide deck that there be strategic planning taking place. I was wondering if it may be too soon to tell at this point, but is there a timeline in place on where you'd like to take this? And also, what would be the Senate's committee, URP, and a Senate's role in this strategic planning?
Yeah, so not really a traditional strategic planning per se. I don't want to confuse people with that, what we have been doing under strategic planning. we will look at this closely in the next several months and working with each division to come up with a plan that is strategic, that is thoughtful. And of course, we will actually share some of the levers that we potentially can pull with our URMP and PBAC. Those are existing shared governance structure on budget. So we will definitely consult with these groups and share some of the things that we know we potentially can use and get inputs from them. But right now it's very early in the process, right? So we have not even get a budget memo from the Chancellor's office for 24-25. Normally, you know, sometimes in March, in a normal year, we'll get a preliminary budget memo, and then we have a little bit more information, what allocation we may be getting and what do we have to fund specifically internally versus coming from the general fund. When we have more of those information, we'll share with all these URMP and PBAC as well.
Thank you. Senator Herman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I'd like to return to the question of administrative salaries. A little bit earlier in the semester, we received a chart, an SDSU organizational chart with the salaries on them and how much they have gone up. And some of these raises are just simply astonishing. 15%, 30%, 27%, 14%, 23%. In other words, administrative salaries have rocketed right along with the size of the administration. Are there any plans to, stupid question, I know, but nonetheless, are there any plans to rein in administrative salaries and to rein in the size of the administration?
I would say everything is on the table and we need to consider, you know, everything. Now, I have seen that chart that you mentioned before. I do think there's a little bit of a data issue there. And I recognize there's some cases that, you know, it looked like someone had a very high percentage over the last 4 or 5 years. I think some of these are from 2019 up to now. And some are related to, you know, change of positions, someone taking on a bigger role. And so I would say those percentage, we need to look at individual cases to better understand, you know, how it happened and why. But I do think, you know, we are in a challenging budget situation. You know, as I said, everything should be on the table, should be looked at.
All right, thank you. I don't see any of their hands raised. We will go on now to our next report. And that's a Vice Provost. Yes, Vice Provost Pruitt Lord, you're recognized.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll start with a report on the tenure and tenure track searches and the status of those. And then if someone would so kindly post the enrollment management report. Up to date, we had 25 successful searches. 3, the offer letters are still out. 11 are in various forms of the approval to negotiate process. And then 21 are in the various stages of having still the candidacy. We've had 2 unsuccessful searches, 1 in HHS and 1 in sciences. And that concludes the report for a total of the 62 tenure track searches that have been launched this fall. And if someone would launch, Mario, so kindly, the enrollment management report. And thanks to AVP Hyman for the efforts to pull together the data and show us where we currently are. And I'll show on the next slide, we can see where spring enrollment currently is. And so we'll see the breakdown of our non-resident and California resident students. And this is across both the Mesa campus and the Imperial Valley campus. And see that we are in for a record breaking for our spring enrollment. Next, please. Specifically on our Imperial Valley campus, they saw considerable growth this spring with the number of students that they enrolled. And as we looked at our sort of annualized targets, the expectations for the CSU target set for us, and that's looking at the sum of summer, fall, and spring, we're at 2%, 2.6% above our target for the FTS. And now for our current admission cycle, and we'll see that, again, these are year-to-date comparisons, and we're, again, have a record number of applications in. We'll see that the green bar represents our global campus applications. The blue represents graduate. While graduate is a little bit low from year to date to last year, that has been in a particular area and is still on target. That particular program will still be able to exceed the admissions expected. They've just been having a lot in computer science, and that's the delta is really in that particular area. Transfer students as well are up first year, and IV is also looks a little bit down, but that is particularly related to our nursing students. And we had so many students applying that our colleagues in IV set a different standard on how we were going to handle nursing admissions, so that we didn't have a lot of applicants who were having to reject because we didn't have enough spots for them. The admitted student activities, a number of activities going on to support the yield rate. We have a number of early first year admits who have already received their letters with a mean GPA of 4.12. The rest will be released later this month. Hope to see many of you at Explore SDSU. I think that's on our next slide. For April 13th, and there are a number of events going on right now for out-of-state students as well. Nationally, there's been a lot of information shared about struggles with the FAFSA application process and the challenges to get students enrolled, and across the CSU system and the UCs, as well as a number of other places, there has been an extension, and the intent to enroll deadline has been extended to May 15th for both us and our sister campuses. Graduate admissions, we continue to see that we have a number of those have been evaluated. They've been sent to the department review, and we're awaiting decisions on a number of those. So we do want to, any of you who are working on graduate admissions review teams, thank you for your service, and ask that whatever you could do to help us move these students along so that we get the yield and the great students that we're hoping to admit. Now I turn it over to you all for some questions.
Okay, thank you. Chair Lack, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler-Bird, and thank you, Interim Vice Provost Pruitt-Lord, for this presentation. I'm going to just quickly reiterate what I asked at Senate Exec a week or two ago, whenever that was. I would very much like for future provost reports to be a little bit more holistic in the information that y'all present. We've gotten a snapshot of the budget. We've gotten a snapshot of enrollment. We're not seeing things, and we've gotten a snapshot of faculty hiring. What we're missing is all the connective tissue between those. So not only are our enrollment targets reaching historic highs, but my understanding is next year's enrollment will be its highest because we'll have the highest junior level, rising junior class, and the highest level of incoming students. We're hearing all sorts of rumors, or at least I am, about we don't have enough space, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough staffing, whether it's faculty or staff to administer these programs. And we're only getting a slice of this picture here with our enrollment targets and our faculty hiring, but we're not seeing the whole picture. So if it's possible for future presentations to be a little bit more holistic so we can really see how everything fits together, I think that'd be really helpful for this body. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll be sure to pass that information on to the provost. I was not at Senate Exec, so didn't hear that request previously, Pam, so I'll make sure that I share that. And yes.
Thank you. We don't see any other hands raised. Thank you for your report. Vice Chair Murdoch, you're recognized.
Hi, everyone. So I am in the process of working on a few referrals. One that I did want to flag is the referral to the bookstore committee related to
You're
some.
hard to hear.
Oh, I'm hard here.
Mhm.
Okay. Should I-
You should be good.
I muted myself, so you
Oh.
could.
Can you hear me now?
No, your laptop's not joined out. It's fine.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Are we good?
You're good.
All right, sorry, everyone. So I am in the process of completing a few referrals. One is a referral to the bookstore committee that is related to some of the requests that were made when the bookstore committee presented to Senate about the bar charts that appear when listing course materials for courses. So I did want to flag that that one is in process, and I hope to complete most of these referrals hopefully before the next SEC meeting. And that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, Senator Scooping, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The first item under Constitution and Bylaws, review of automatic signature content on Senator discussions listserv. So there was an information item last month from CBL. In my understanding, effectively returning this, so being done with it. So again, I'm a bit confused about the status of this.
So you're referring to
This is 23-24-04.
a review of automatic signature content on discussions list, and it's your understanding that that should have been completed?
No. No, it's not completed. It's still, we have that in consultation. A response regarding that or an update will be brought at the next SEC meeting.
But it's listed for CBL here, and CBL has answered.
Oh, you're right about that. It's not a CBL issue. It is really it's Freedom of Expression Committee. So we will update that. That's an editorial, that's a typo.
Okay, yeah, so we'll work on getting that.
Thank you for
Okay.
bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and move to the Senate Treasurer's Report. Treasurer Sharma, you're recognized.
Okay, I hope you can hear me well. If not, let me know. What you see on the screen is the expense report since the last Senate meeting, and it includes the release time stipends or for the chairs and faculty members involved here with this Senate business, as well as some of the other equipment and food and catering related expenses.
Okay, Secretary Fuller, I notice your hand is raised, and I'm not sure if that had to do with the previous report. This one, okay. Thank you. Are there any questions about the Treasurer's Report? Any comments? All right. Seeing none, we have completed our agenda. It's a miracle. There's one hand raised. Chair Lack, you're recognized.
Yeah, apologies for possibly throwing a monkey wrench, but have we done the information items?
Yes, we did. We did
did?
them on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a monkey wrench we can always tolerate.
I'd like to move for adjournment of the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Third.
I hope. Thank you all so much, and have a good rest of your couple of weeks before spring break. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.